Rachel Lamb Brown, and the Daystar succession nobody has announced. On the morning of May 7, 2026, Joni Lamb took her final breath at the family's home in Bedford, Texas. Her daughter Rachel was present. She was at her mother's bedside in the room where the woman who had spent decades building Daystar Television Network from a single Alabama station into a broadcasting operation reaching tens of millions of American homes died. Rachel was there. Her brother Jonathan was not far away, geographically. He and his wife Susie have both stated publicly that they were nearby, within driving distance of the house where their mother was dying. Jonathan has said so in interviews. Susie confirmed it on social media. They were close enough that a phone call would have reached them in time. No one called. Jonathan learned that his mother had died from Daystar's attorney, Tom Calenderer. Not from Rachel, not from Rebecca, not from Doug Weiss, from the organization's legal counsel after it was already over. That fact, the son learning of his mother's death from a lawyer while his sister stood at the deathbed, is not a minor biographical footnote in the Daystar story. It is the moment that made permanent what 3 years of choices had been building toward. And understanding Rachel Lamb Brown's position at Daystar today requires understanding it as the product of those 3 years of choices, each one made deliberately, each one narrowing the space between Rachel and the institution, and widening the space between Jonathan and it. Who Rachel Lamb Brown is. Rachel is the middle child of Marcus and Joni Lamb. Jonathan is older. Rebecca is younger. Born in the mid-1980s, she grew up inside Daystar. Not metaphorically, but literally. The network her parents built was the environment of her childhood and young adult life. She appeared on camera with her family. She was part of the family-centered brand that made Daystar something different from a typical broadcasting organization. The sense that viewers were watching real people with real relationships sharing genuine faith. She holds a business administration degree from Oral Roberts University, the same institution her brother Jonathan attended. That shared educational background, within an evangelical world where Oral Roberts University carries specific cultural and professional significance, placed Rachel and Jonathan on parallel tracks from early in their adult lives. Same family, same university, same inherited sense of ministry calling. She married Joshua Brown, who served as Daystar's Director of Business Development at an annual salary of approximately $100,000, as of the internal compensation documents obtained by independent journalists. Rachel's own salary in those same documents was listed at $190,000 annually, making her the third highest compensated known Daystar employee behind Joni herself and the organization's chief financial officer. As of July 2026, Joshua Brown is no longer in Texas. He has relocated to Nashville, Tennessee. The circumstances and timing of that move have not been publicly explained. Rachel remains in Colleyville, Texas. She remains at Daystar. Her title is Director of Communications, a sequence of choices. The position Rachel now occupies inside Daystar did not fall to her by accident. It was constructed through a series of decisions made over approximately 3 years, each one reinforcing her alignment with the institution and its leadership while progressively removing Jonathan from any foothold within it. When Jonathan and Susie Lamb declined in July 2023 to read on air a viewer comment praising Joni's marriage to Doug Weiss, an act that led to their removal from their roles, Rachel did not step back in solidarity with her brother. She remained. When Joni released a lengthy video in which she directly characterized Jonathan's account of events as dishonest and his public statements as a coordinated campaign against the ministry, Rachel did not publicly question her mother's version or call for any independent review. She remained. When investigative reporting on the abuse allegations connected to the Lamb family broke into national coverage in November 2024, Rachel issued no statement acknowledging the seriousness of the claims or calling for independent examination. She remained. When Jonathan was formally removed from his position at Daystar on November 16, 2024, losing not just his salary and title but his access to the institution his family had built, Rachel remained. At the memorial service held for Joni Lamb on May 18, 2026, at a church campus in Southlake, Texas, Rachel delivered a eulogy for her mother. She did not mention Jonathan's name. Her sister Rebecca also spoke. Neither of them acknowledged their brother's existence in any of their remarks. The only participant in the service who referenced Jonathan at all was a pre-recorded tribute from President Donald Trump. And then there was the morning of May 7th itself. Rachel was present when her mother died. Jonathan was down the road. The call was never made. Each of these moments, considered individually, can be contextualized charitably. A daughter remaining loyal to her mother during an intensely painful family conflict is not inherently wrong. Choosing to believe one family member over another when their accounts directly contradict each other is a position millions of people find themselves in. None of these choices, standing alone, constitutes a clear moral failure. But the sequence matters. 3 years of escalating choices, each one building on the last, each one making the previous ones more difficult to walk back, have produced a specific and durable outcome. Rachel is the only Lamb family member with any operational role inside Daystar. Jonathan has no title, no access, no institutional presence, and no say in an organization his father named him to lead. What Rachel has and what she doesn't. The honest accounting of Rachel's position requires distinguishing between what she actually holds and what she does not. She has a confirmed salary and a confirmed operational role inside the institution. She has the trust her mother placed in her, manifested in Rachel's presence at the deathbed, and her continued employment through every stage of the crisis. She has the support, visible if not publicly stated, of the board of directors currently managing Daystar's operations. She has institutional knowledge, institutional access, and institutional familiarity that no outside candidate could replicate quickly. And she has the property trust Joni established before her death, the terms of which remain entirely private. What she does not have is a named CEO title. She is not the president. She is not the acting head of the network. No public announcement has designated her as Daystar's next leader. The board that holds the legal authority to make that designation has said nothing on the record about succession. Director of Communications is a real role with real responsibilities. It is also, in most organizational structures, not the position from which major strategic and financial decisions are made. Whether Rachel's actual authority inside Daystar exceeds what her title would formally suggest is something the organization has chosen not to clarify publicly. The legal reality of Marcus's letter. At the center of the succession question is a document Marcus Lamb wrote in August 2021, months before his death, and distributed to his family, to CFO Arnold Torres, and to others in Daystar's leadership. Marcus stated clearly that if he died before Joni would lead the network, and that when Joni's leadership ended through death or retirement, Jonathan would succeed her. That document exists. It has been reported on by multiple independent outlets. Its contents are not in dispute. What is in dispute is whether it carries any legal force. Word of God Fellowship Incorporated, the Georgia-registered corporate entity that operates Daystar, is governed by a board of directors that holds the legal authority over personnel decisions, including the appointment of a chief executive. A founding president's written directive, distributed by email to family members and organizational leadership, is a personal expression of intent. It is not a bylaw amendment. It is not a shareholder resolution. It does not by itself create a legally binding obligation on the corporation or its governing board. Tom Calenderer, in the November 2023 board meeting that Jonathan secretly recorded, made the board's position explicit. He had not personally signed the succession plan, and it was therefore not in effect from the board's perspective. Whether that interpretation is legally precise requires analysis of Word of God Fellowship's specific corporate documents, its articles of incorporation, its bylaws, any governance agreements in place, but it reflects the operational reality. Jonathan Lamb has not, as of July 7, 2026, filed any legal action challenging the board's authority or demanding court enforcement of Marcus's succession directive. He has launched a new ministry. He has spoken publicly about his experience. He has not pursued the legal path that would force the board to defend its decisions before a court. That legal path remains theoretically available. It is also expensive, uncertain in outcome, and potentially counterproductive. A courtroom battle over control of Daystar would extend the public scandal, likely damage relationships with the remaining affiliate ministries on which the network's revenue depends, and could result in a leader insta, held by judicial order rather than by genuine organizational support, a starting position from which meaningful leadership would be extraordinarily difficult. Rebecca, the Lamb child. Nobody is covering. There is a third sibling in this story who has received almost no sustained attention across 2 years of intensive coverage of the Daystar situation. Rebecca Lamb Weiss is the youngest of Marcus and Joni's children. She is married to Jonathan Weiss, referred to internally as JW to distinguish him from Doug Weiss, who serves as Daystar's Director of Information Technology. According to the internal salary documents published by independent journalists, Rebecca's annual compensation was $100,000 as of 2022 for her work as a Daystar contributor and a podcaster. Her husband earned $185,000. Jonathan Weiss's official title at Daystar includes a designation that received almost no attention when the salary documents were first published: Director of Estate Planning. The significance of that title, given that Joni Lamb spent the final period of her life undertaking a substantial restructuring of her personal financial holdings, selling a private jet, transferring properties into a trust, reorganizing assets, has never been publicly examined. Whether Jonathan Weiss's estate planning role gave him any involvement in, knowledge of, or influence over those financial decisions is not part of the public record. The title's existence in the organizational structure is confirmed. What was done under it is not. Rebecca delivered a eulogy at her mother's memorial service. She did not mention Jonathan Lamb. She has made no public statement about the family conflict, about her brother's situation, or about Daystar's future. She has, across this entire period, been the least visible of the three siblings. Not a whistleblower, not a loyalist in any publicly declared sense, but a Q. We'd continued presence inside the institution through her husband's ongoing role. What the board's silence is actually communicating. 2 months after Joni Lamb's death, the Daystar Board of Directors has made no succession announcement. Their public statement on May 7th said that an executive leadership team was in place. A request by a journalist for the names of that team was not answered. A leadership team that cannot be named is not, in any practical accountability sense, a leadership team. It is institutional language deployed to create the appearance of organizational stability, while the actual decisions about Daystar's future are made in private on the board's own timeline. In that context, Rachel's continued presence as Director of Communications serves a specific function for the board, whether or not anyone has articulated it explicitly. She is the Lamb family presence that makes Daystar look like something other than a leaderless institution. She gives the network a connection to its founding brand without requiring the board to resolve the far more complicated question of whether Marcus's succession directive should be honored. She is not the CEO, but she is the reason the absence of a CEO is not more visibly destabilizing to the network's public image. The three options available to the board: elevating a Lamb family member, promoting an existing official such as CFO Arnold Torres, or conducting an external search, remain publicly unresolved. 2 months in, none of them has been announced. The board is managing this transition on its own schedule and communicating nothing to the donors whose contributions fund the institution's operations. What the donors have not been told. The people who have been writing monthly checks to Daystar for decades have not been told that the leadership team referenced in the May 7th statement has never been publicly identified. They have not been told that the only Lamb family member currently inside TNT's building holds a communications title while her husband has moved to a different state. They have not been told that Marcus's succession directive naming Jonathan as Joni's eventual successor carries no legally binding weight that the board is obligated to honor. They have not been told that the ministry shed more than 100 employees without public announcement. They have not been told that a significant portion of the network's programming now consists of archived content from a founder who died 5 years ago. They were told the mission does not change. Missions are statements of purpose. Organizations change constantly in their personnel, their financial structures, their programming decisions, their governance. What has not changed at Daystar is the donation infrastructure. What has not changed is the anonymity of the board making decisions about hundreds of millions of dollars in accumulated assets. What has not changed is the absence of the financial transparency that would allow any donor to verify where their contributions actually go. Where this story stands. As of July 7, 2026, the Daystar succession has not been publicly resolved. Rachel Lamb Brown is present and employed. Jonathan Lamb is building a new ministry elsewhere and has made no confirmed move toward legal action over the succession question. Rebecca Lamb Weiss remains quietly connected to the institution through her husband's operational role. The board remains anonymous. The leadership team remains unnamed. The 110 former employees remain unacknowledged in any official Daystar communication. Jonathan has spoken publicly about wanting reconciliation with his sisters. Whether that desire includes eventually returning to Daystar, or whether it reflects a genuine willingness to build something separate and release his claim to what his father said should be his, that is a question only Jonathan can answer. What the documented record shows is that the path back to Daystar, if it exists, is narrow. The board holds the legal authority. The board is silent. Rachel is inside the building. Josh is in Nashville, and the network continues broadcasting, with a dead man's sermons on the schedule, an anonymous board making the decisions, and donors still receiving letters asking them to give more, while the people who might demand accountability from the outside are left to work with documents that had to be forced into the open, recordings that were secretly made, and property records that required specialized research to trace. That is not a ministry operating in transparency. It is an institution that has taken full advantage of the legal freedom its church status provides to remain as unaccountable as possible for as long as possible. Whether that changes, whether the board eventually discloses itself, whether succession is publicly announced, whether the donors who built this institution across 3 decades ever receive a full accounting of how their giving was used, those questions remain open. What is not open is what has already happened. Rachel was at the bedside. Jonathan was down the road. The call was never made. And Daystar is moving forward in a direction Marcus Lamb's own written words said he did not intend. Thank you for watching.